Well, Jason, we're back here again. It's been 10 years, Jason.
It's been
Well,
so long.
not since we've last collaborated, but no, I mean, like, literally, it's been 10 years since the
I know.
Southern Reach trilogy came out.
It has been.
Which, that was not intentional. That just kind of happened. I can't believe it's that old. A whole decade. I was 13 years old when this came out.
Do you remember when you read it?
I was gonna give the origin story of how I first came across
Okay.
this book, but
Okay,
yeah,
go for it.
if you didn't gather, um, I've been thinking about doing this for a while, but then Jason was like, "I'm gonna do a read along on my channel," and I was like, "Crap, does that mean he's gonna do like reviews? This is gonna be pointless then." But he's like, he was a good sport about it. He's like, "Well, let me finish the book, and then we'll talk about it." And I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, we're talking about Annihilation today. We're gonna be talking about the whole Southern Reach trilogy. Well, not today, but we're gonna make a couple more videos about the Southern Reach trilogy, because they're very good. And Jason, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your fondness for
Well,
this
yeah, if you
book.
guys haven't seen me, my name's Jason. Clearly, you can see my little name right here. My last name's Fuhrman, which I forgot to put in. But yeah, I run a YouTube channel here. I also write. I review books, talk about storytelling. I kind of have I don't have a very focused channel. I feel like it's focused with storytelling, but not like specific genres. So I read pretty broadly. And I've been on Britain's channel a lot of times. I've had him on my channel plenty of times too. So that's me.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, we're talking about. So yeah, today we're talking about Annihilation, and because Jason just recently did a read along, I thought, why not get him on after he, after he does that. But here we are. Yeah, you were tempting me for a minute there. I'm like, oh man, am I gonna pick up this book again and start reading it? Because it's it's not very long. It's like a novella, really. It's hold on.
I guess it depends on how you define a novella. I believe isn't it at least 200 pages long? Or is it
Well, my
under?
copy is 195 pages.
Oh,
So
okay. So just barely under 200. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like those classifications. I feel like a book is a book.
fair enough.
That's how I am. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, usually when I think of like novella, you think of, like at least under like 200, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
It doesn't
That's
really
fair.
matter, I guess. But short novel, novella, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm talking about Annihilation today by Jeff VanderMeer. Or we are anyway. So yeah, your favorite trilogy, you've said a few times, right? Am I off?
My favorite trilogy that I've read so far at the time of this recording, yes.
All right. I'm quite fond of it myself. I think it's really strong trilogy. But before we get into this, I guess I should give my origin story, which always kind of. Jason always finds it hilarious when I say I actually saw the film version of this first, which is I guess kind of funny. It was interesting watching that film, and I was like, ooh, and I like the movie. I think it's very good for what it is anyway. And then I'm like, oh, there's a book on this, and then I picked up the book, and I was blown away by it. It's I don't wish to be too sappy about it, but I remember when I first read it, and I was like, I don't know if you've had this experience, Jason, but it feels like you're reading something you haven't read before.
Yeah. I mean,
Even though there are callbacks to other things, and I will admit I didn't know what Roadside Picnic was before I found this book. So when I read it, I was 17, I think, because I saw Annihilation when it came out, and I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know science fiction could be like that." And then I read the rest of the trilogy. Like I remember like having vague memories of going through the trilogy. I read the first one. I remember that. And then like not long after the pandemic, I'm like, screw it, I'll read the other two. So I did, and here we are now.
here we are.
Yeah, there we go. It's not as dramatic as I imagined it in my head, but there we go.
Funny enough, I can't remember my origin story, even though
Memory is
this is my
so
favorite
bad.
trilogy. I know it's weird. I
It's like a
remember because
running
I've read.
gag with you. Like your memory is just terrible.
Well, I remember I've read this book at least 3 times. Maybe this is my 4th time.
Oh, okay.
I listened to the audiobook exclusively during one of those, quote unquote reads. Just because I love the story so much, I wanted to kind of like revisit it in any way I could, and that was the easiest way to do it. And yeah, I don't remember exactly when I read it. I feel like it was probably, it might have been shortly after it came out, because it was way before the movie came out.
Yeah, you're better at like keeping up with things coming out. I am terrible with that.
Yeah, but I didn't know who Jeff VanderMeer was. Never heard of the book whatsoever, and I like to think that I think I just discovered it. I can't remember anybody telling me about it, and I decided to pick it up. And really, it excuse me, it as you know, I'm a massive Lovecraft fan, and it has that cosmic horror vibe to it. I'm also, before I knew what Roadside Picnic was, before I even ever saw Stalker by Tarkovsky, I played this video game called Stalker, which of course was inspired by it. And I loved it. It had that Lovecraftian element. As there was a zone, right, where you cross into, and there's some weird stuff going on. So to me, that's what Area X is. It's like, Annihilation. It's Lovecraft and Roadside Picnic with some great characterization thrown in, like all mixed together.
And scenery porn. Don't forget the scenery porn.
The scenery porn's great, but to me, it's an amalgam of all of the things I love about storytelling and that get me excited. So it's, you have Lovecraft, which cool mythos and stuff, and you have Roadside Picnic, which kind of cool mythos, but both of them are very short on character. I'd say Roadside Picnic had a little bit more character than Lovecraft, but
yeah, I thought I saw you recently going like, oh man, Roadside Picnic's kind of better than I remember it being.
Well, yeah, in parts for sure. I'd say as a whole, yeah, I don't know. I got to review that one still, but not even close to Annihilation. So oddly enough, I was looking for proof that Roadside Picnic and or Lovecraft inspired Jeff VanderMeer with this book, and I couldn't find anything. He named like books that I'd never heard of or books that I didn't expect, but never once did he mention Lovecraft.
It's funny that he's denied that like Stalker was an influence. I don't
really
buy it, but
yeah,
apparently
it had to be
I read somewhere
or...
he had a dream where he saw the strangler or where lies the strangling fruit, and he woke up, and that was where he got the idea.
Oh,
I don't know if I don't know if that's false, but the idea that he wasn't at all inspired by Stalker, I find very unlikely because
yeah, I mean it could be an unconscious thing. Something
maybe it's a massive coincidence. I don't know, but
it would have to be a massive coincidence. There's too many things that it has in common, But anyway.
Roadside Picnic, I know you know this, but it's actually one of the few where I actually think the movie does it better than the book.
I agree. 100%.
Now, do I think that with Annihilation? No. It's funny you're wearing, it's kind of ironic you're wearing The Shining. You're wearing The Shining shirt, because I actually would say if there is a comparison to the Annihilation movie, it's kind of like how The Shining, the book, and the movie are two different beasts, So
I agree with that. I still think The Shining's better than the novel.
Yeah, I know.
That's an unpopular opinion, but I stand by it.
That's hard for me, because I do like both of them, but, I don't want to get into the Shining conversation, but it's kind of funny you're wearing, I was just pointing out, it's kind of funny you're wearing that shirt, because I kind of think of the Annihilation book and movie in a kind of similar way. It's like, if you're watching the movie and you read the book, I remember this, like, I kind of do. I remember when I picked it up, I was like, wow, this is kind of different from the movie. I mean, the setup is the same, it's her husband went into the Shimmer, or it's called the Shimmer in the movie, Area X in this book. Goes in Area X, disappears, comes back different, and then she's like, I want to go in there and see what's going on. So.
Well, I'm curious. So we have a very different perspective. So I read the book, saw the movie. You saw the movie, read the book. So I want to ask you, because I can tell you right now, when I first saw the movie, and I'm a massive Alex Garland fan,
I know.
I was let down. I was disappointed at first.
Really.
So you and I can go into that why, but you like doing the reverse. What were you like when you read the book? Were you disappointed? Did it seem like a better version or an expansion of what you saw? How did you feel?
What I thought was interesting is some of the choices he made, which I'm sure we'll get into as we get into this conversation today. But I just remember thinking like it's very different in turn because like in the movie you get more like rounded characterization. Now there's not a lot of it, but you get like a rounded idea of who the people going into Area X are in the movie. In the book, it's just a biologist, and well, biologist is a lot different than Natalie Portman's character. I don't remember her name in the movie, so I'll just call her Natalie Portman. I remember that, but I remember being really intrigued because, like, the biologist, which again, I'm sure we'll get into as this goes along, like, you know, she's very, I don't want to say different, but...
No, very different.
I mean, yeah, very different
the
from
character,
other people, and
yeah.
not just like the, you know, I mean, I get everyone is different in some way, but she's definitely not like other people in a lot of ways. Like, while in the movie, like the characters, I don't want to say, I think the biologist is human enough in the book, but in the movie they felt more human, I guess. Which I think it makes sense in Annihilation, because in Annihilation, it's kind of funny, you know, you guys were talking about the killer the other day. And I think it does a similar trick in Annihilation where, like, they're not really people, it's the role. And there's that bit of dehumanization there. Or at least...
In the novel
a little
you're talking
subtextual.
about?
I mean, I know I'm getting a little subtextual already, but I kind of got that vibe, you know? Where it's like...
Yeah.
It's like they're not really people, they're more their function.
Yeah.
Like the surveyor, the biologist, the psychologist, who we
But that was kind of, I mean,
who we
that was
learn more
purposeful.
about in the other books.
Yeah. But also, the book is from a first-person perspective of the biologist. She's literally writing this down as we're reading it. Whereas the movie is, you know, omniscient-y. Like we get a look at the other characters and their trauma. We don't get to see that at all in the book. Just the biologist. So, but again, you could tell it was Garland knew, like, hey, I'm not making a trilogy. I'm doing this one-off thing. I need to make
see
it
him do Authority. That would be fun. That would be fun to watch him doing Authority.
Yeah, but he kind of broke it. He kind of ended it.
I know.
I don't really know how you would continue the narrative because I remember I read an interview with Garland saying it's not an adaptation. I wanted to create a film that captured the feeling I got from reading the book, like my feeling, you know, how I felt while I was reading it, not necessarily like a faithful adaptation as we'd come to expect. I think he succeeded in that. He kind of gave his own spin to it, but the novel, after having just finished it, I would say I prefer the novel more. So I know, like, the Falcon Reads, he was saying he likes the movie more, Carol. And at the time when he mentioned that, I said, I don't know. It's been so long. I've been away from the book for so long. I don't know. But now after reading it, I would 100% say the book is better.
All right.
As like a, I guess you get into the problem as it's part of a trilogy. Yes, it does end, but it continues. Whereas the film has a definitive end, so he had to wrap everything up. You know, like with the other, like the surveyor and all the other people, the psychologist. He had to tell their stories too because he knew this was the end.
Yeah, though there were some things in the book that I was like, oh man, I would have liked to see that. You know, like the crawler, for instance. I would have loved to see where lies the strangling fruit. I would have loved. To see that,
he kind of did it a little bit, like when you know at the end of the film, and I know this isn't really about this film, but when they show that alien weird fractal like weird geometric, that's kind of like the crawler because. I'm not sure if you remember, but in the novel, the crawler is described as a bunch of things. So
Uh-huh.
for whatever
Yeah.
reason, a lot of people like cling to the slug-like creature, but he describes it, I think, 3 or 4 different ways, like line by line, meaning it's that Lovecraft indescribable vibe. It keeps
Mm-hmm.
shifting. It's not one thing. It shifts. It changes depending on, who knows, maybe who you are, the angle you're looking at it. Like, who knows?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a it's an eldritch being, as Lovecraft would probably put it, though he'd probably describe it differently. Well, he'd say eldritch, but
He would definitely say Eldritch. He'd probably use the word indescribable too.
yeah, no, H.P. Lovecraft would freaking love this book. I would imagine, though he'd probably be like, "What?"
I don't. Maybe I don't know.
I'll try
I
not
don't
to
know.
assume what dead people would like or not like. I'll put it that. All right, I'll step back from that, but yeah, but I remember just thinking, like, man, Jeff VanderMeer. I've read my fair share of science fiction over the years, and over time, you're kind of like, this is kind of, it's kind of samey, a little bit. As much as I love science fiction, there's sometimes I'm like, this feels like it's kind of the same thing. And look, that's not bad. We all have tropes we like, but sometimes you like something a little different. And then I read Annihilation. And I was like, holy crap, this is like, I've never read anything like that before up until now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now I've seen like Stalker and Roadside Picnic, and now I don't think Roadside Picnic is like, as good as this book is, but I was very impressed, put it that way, when I first read it.
Yeah, same. It to me, like, and I know you know this story, and I've probably told the story a bunch on my channel, but when I discovered Lovecraft when I was about 12 or 13, it kind of just, it was like I was looking into the fucking crawler's face, basically. Like, it was like a switch had been flipped for me. And that's what this book did.
It was kind of, I know what you mean. It was just like, wow, I didn't know you could write like that. It's like,
yeah, so imaginative, but so like personal, so like intimate, you might say, with a characterization. And so you're super invested, at least I was, and wondering who this biologist is, what was her past, where is she going. But then also you couple that with this mysteriousness of everything. You have the Area X, you have the mysteries of the Southern Reach and Central, and like, where did it all come from? Who, there's just so many great things about it. And it's all blended together in such a cohesive way. I think that's another one big strength of the novel I don't think a lot of people appreciate, is that and I think when you're reading books often, you always wonder, like, well, why did they choose this POV character? Like, why this character? Because you could choose any character you want to tell the story from, but this is the biologist's story because
I guess
we know
that is a good question to ask. Like, why? I guess you're about to explain it, but like, why do
Yeah.
you think he chose the biologist specifically to tell the story? Because like,
right,
I think because like I could definitely see people. I disagree with this, but I can definitely see people going like, "Oh, there isn't enough characterization except for this biologist lady. She's kind of
I mean,
detached." Now I would respond with that, saying like that's kind of. And I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when people say this, but I think that's intentional.
yeah, it's
'Cause,
totally intentional. I mean, it's
Because the
first
biologist
person.
isn't interested in people. Again, we'll get more into that as the book goes along. She's more like, what is this? And you get like an idea of what she's like.
Yeah, but he clearly chose this POV character because Area X is what she needed as a person. She was detached. She couldn't find true intimacy with people. She was always finding herself wandering into the wilderness, getting lost, you might say. And this is what she truly needed. This was kind of her fate, her final path in life. And so what better character to experience this weird alien, because it's a paradox, or I should say it's irony, where normally when faced with horrors of an alien landscape, you might say, whatever this is, you want someone who's going to react to that, to emote to that, to run away from that, to try to escape it. But what does she do? She assimilates. She integrates with it. which is the exact opposite of what I
She
think
does
we
get
normally
spooked
expect.
out a couple times, like when
She
meets
does,
the
but
Crawler, she's
overall,
like, "Whoa."
right, but overall, she's fascinated by it.
Yeah.
She never once is like, I need to get the hell out of here, ever, to my memory. And that is what makes it even more interesting is we're constantly questioning not only where is she going, what is this thing, how did it happen? We're wondering, why does she want to go here? And so it's a journey of this character, of this biologist, to have these self-revelations about relationships and her place in the world and her place, side by side with humanity. Like, what is that? So that's why this book is such a beautiful, again, it's like this merging of these things where the character and the theme and the environment itself are all like working together, the plot, all of that. And that's, to me, what makes a great story. And I think that's why it's a special book to me.
Yeah, I would agree. You definitely put it quite nicely. I am fascinated just kind of by, how do I put it? She's very alienated from other people. And she and it's like you said when you were doing your read along, she finds a place to belong in Area X in a weird way. Even though ostensibly she's looking for what actually happened to her husband. Because I don't know if she buys that well, we'll get into that. Yeah. Though there are a couple of question marks, like why did she get married if she feels so isolated from other people? But again, we'll get to that. No,
I have an answer.
But I really enjoy this book because of just how weird it is. It might be the best cosmic horror story I've read this century, at least so far. There's some people I still need to read, like apparently John Langan is very good. Thomas Ligotti. I've only read one of his stories. I want to really give him a try. Apparently Jeff VanderMeer really likes Thomas Ligotti, so.
Yeah, I've only read one of his stories too, but I'm gonna read the Grim Scribe pretty soon.
True Detective is kind of cosmic horror a little bit.
Yeah, it's got a little bit in there.
Especially towards the end, season 1 anyway. What else? I mean, I would say Perdido Street Station has cosmic horror elements in it, but that's a bit of a hodgepodge of different genres, so I won't get into that. But yeah, just in terms of straight, just weird cosmic horror that actually does it well and doesn't over-explain itself, Annihilation is pretty good. Unless you're St. Joshi and you're a big meanie and you think it's bad, which I disagree.
Oh, he thinks it's bad?
Oh, yeah, he made a whole essay about why he thinks Jeff Vander, which I should note is because Jeff VanderMeer and him got into a little spat about Lovecraft.
Really? Tell me more. I have no knowledge
You
of
can
this.
look it up. I mean, I remember reading it. It's called Jeff VanderMeer Aesthetic Catastrophe. It's on his website. I hate to, I mean, I know you're a fan of cosmic horror, but you know who St. Joshi is, right?
Oh yeah, he's Lovecraft's. I mean, he's put together all of his collections. He's like a Lovecraft scholar.
Pretty much, yeah. Also, if you get a Penguin edition and it's edited by St. Joshi, you're probably going to be in good hands because he knows what he's doing. But in one of his cranky old man bits, because there's some people who don't like Lovecraft for reasons. Yeah, he got pretty mad at Jeff VanderMeer, but
okay.
Annihilation is a good book. Or at least
it's a great book.
It's a great book. Yeah. I've kind of gone back and forth if this is a 5-star read, because I consider a lot of things when I give something a 5-star, and I've kind of gone back and forth over the years. I'm like, it's really good and unique, but I'm like, there's something that kind of keeps me from it, and it's kind of pulling back and forth. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of I'm often wondering if I like Authority or Annihilation more, because I do love Annihilation. I love the setting. I love the weirdness and kind of that weird detached narration. But I also really like the weird espionage, workplace drama in Authority. There's also a scene in that book that genuinely spooked me. Like, but we'll get to that in the authority discussion. That did not happen in Annihilation, but what I did love in Annihilation was the atmosphere and the oddity of it all, if you will.
It's very odd.
So, do you have any spoiler-free thoughts before we kind of dive into this
spoiled
thing?
the hell of it, huh?
A little bit.
I think I've kind of spoiler-free thoughts. I mean, really, if people want to stop it here, if we haven't spoiled you already, I mean, again, I know I just said it, but really, the reason why this book is, 10 out of 10 for me, is that it takes all of these elements that exist in fiction, characterization, plot, theme, and they all are reliant upon each other in this book. You take one part of that thing away, it doesn't work as well, not nearly as well. And so because the character, the setting, the plot, all of these things are just swirling together, that's what makes this book so powerful. So every event has to do with the setting, which has to do with the biologist herself, which has to do with her personal journey. One other thing I'd like to say is I haven't heard many people talk about how well written this book is.
Oh my gosh!
The word choices in here are like, you don't read. I would argue that this is a literary science fiction book.
Let me read if you don't mind. Let me read the first paragraph of this puppy.
Sure.
It's reading time with Britain. The tower, which was not supposed to be there, plunges into the earth in a place just before the black pine forest begins to give way to swamp, and then the reeds and wind-gnarled trees of the marsh flats. Beyond the marsh flats and the natural canals lies the ocean, and a little farther down the coast, a derelict lighthouse. All of this is part of the country that had been abandoned for decades, for reasons that are not easy to relate. Our expedition was the first to enter Area X for more than 2 years, and much of our predecessors' equipment had rusted, their tents and sheds little more than husks. Looking out over that untroubled landscape, I do not believe any of us could yet see the threat. Bam!
Mm-hmm.
Bam!
It's a great paragraph. I know I talked about my read along, but if you read, I think just in the first page, you have a sense of setting, you have a sense of the characters, you have a sense of why they're there, and what they're all about, like within the first page. And you don't often, I don't think you have to do that, but I think it's worth pointing out. It's commendable to do something like that, to just really set the stage so quickly, so the reader kind of gets all of that. One thing I'd like to notice, and I brought it up a long time ago, is if you really read that first paragraph, that Britton just read carefully, you'll see that it's almost a reverse. So in film, you normally dip the camera down into a scene, right? You want to enter the world. Whereas this is almost the inverse of that. It starts off with the tower, which wasn't supposed to be there. Boom, boom, boom. It's moving back, talking about the marshes, talking about then the ocean, the lighthouse, the coast. So it's almost like if the camera is starting focused on the tower and moving out. So it's a very cinematic, literary camera move, you might say.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of putting it, really. But it really gives you a sense, for my kind of one of my conspiracy theories about this book is I wouldn't be shocked if Area X was in Florida, because what he describes kind of sounds like Florida.
Yeah.
So
he lives there.
I mean,
so.
I wouldn't be surprised he lives there, and also, there was a wildlife reserve that influenced this that's in Florida.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I basically just
clearly
imagined it as that place in Florida, just weirdified.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
It's very eloquent.
But yeah, word choice, if you pay... So another reason why I like to do these read-alongs is that it forces me to really pay close attention to the book. And the word colonize, for instance, is used numerous times with all different meanings or different contexts, I should say. And it's very purposeful. That's not just the one word. He does that with numerous words. There's a word called midden, which I didn't know what it meant. It means a refuse pile or a dung heap. He uses that here. He also reuses it in authority. So you can see this more literary writing style. It's not just using words because they sound cool or sound pretty. He's using them with purpose and then peppering them throughout the novel in different ways.
It's like terror, except like there's an I between it.
Terroir.
Terroir, yeah.
Terroir, yeah. That's an authority.
Times.
That's an authority.
No, that's authority. My bad.
But immolation.
Get my books mixed up.
Yeah, he uses immolation. So there's a lot of the chapter names even. So this book is composed of 5 chapters only. They're each about 50-ish or so pages. And it's a progression. So the first chapter, I think, is called Initiation. Actually, I can grab the book right here. It's initiation, then integration, then immersion, then disillusion. So all of those chapter titles are speaking to exactly what's going on within that chapter. So it's very, very, very purposeful. This is a book. It's one of those books that when you read it, you're like, okay, he probably went through a ton of revisions, like a ton of rounds of revisions for this thing, drafts, I should say, because there's just so much care in this book, and I think that's what's great. It's only 200, well, under 200 according to your paperback, 200 or under 200 pages, but man, it is dense as hell. Like there is a lot going on.
I reread it in 2021 because I keep track of my Goodreads. Before I stopped, tracking my or not. Anyway, I was tracking it, and I remember reading. I'm like, God, this is kind of, this is more. I mean, for a short book, there's a lot of stuff in here. I remember,
Yep. Anyway, that's I'll stop the gushing about in general terms, but yeah, I guess that's my piece for now.
So. All right, yeah. I mean, I would agree with it. I mean, if there was one word I would describe this book, it would probably be sublime, in a really like uncomfortable sublime. If that's a thing.
Do you practice Santeria though?
No. I don't.
Sorry, that's a sublime joke.
I don't.
I had to. I don't know why. Every time I hear that word, I know it's a word and not just a band, but I always think of that band when that word comes up. It's funny.
So, setup of this book.
Yep.
There's a couple people. There's 4 or 5. No, 4. There were 4 of us. I remember she says that.
Biologist, psychologist, surveyor, and anthropologist.
Exactly. And they go into this eldritch location called I'm liking that word for some reason today. It's basically like a modernization. I mean, if I could really describe it, it's like Stalker with a nice just syringe of the color out of space, just shoved in there. And it's this weird zone, and the government, of course, is of course they ward people off from it. They're like, oh, there was some environmental disaster, and they keep sending people in there, and it's gone all sorts of wrong. Like people have shot each other, shot themselves. They even have come back, maybe. Basically going in there, they kind of, or I don't know if they know this at first, but basically going in there is a one-way trip. Or at least that's what I was thinking.
Well, they don't. Yeah, it is explained later in the book that when she reads her husband's journal, that he tries to find the border, and it's almost like he's caught in this loop in a way. But he describes it as like, I don't feel like it's a loop, but nothing's changing. So no matter how far he walks with his buddy, like he never gets anywhere. So yeah, I think things do come out, but it seems to be that once you're in, unless you have some knowledge about how to get out, perhaps nobody gets out once you go in.
Yeah, though, our main character is only known as the biologist, or a ghost bird, if you're familiar with the other books. I really, but we mainly followed the biologist perspective. We do learn a couple of things about, if I remember right, we do learn a couple of things about some of the other people. Like, one of them was an ex-soldier. The other one did some other things. I can't quite... I remember the ex-soldier part, though. And the psychologist is kind of the leader of the group.
Yeah, I think it was the surveyor who was the ex-soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, it gets pretty weird from then on. And it was kind of interesting. I remember when I read this, there's a lot of interesting... I remember thinking about the movie a little bit. I couldn't help it, really, when I was reading the book. Because, like, you know, in the movie, there's, like, a scene where she's all, like... I don't even remember going into the thing. And we just kind of wake up, and we just woke up and we were there, you know? While in the book, they're just there, you know? And they're there for the
you
whole
mean
book.
in Area X?
Yeah, Area X, yeah.
I guess that's worth noting too. Is that when you start the book, you're already there. You're not. It's not like, hey, here's a mission briefing. We're gonna go into this place. Here's what it's all about. It's like, no, we're just, boom, we're inside immediately.
But it turns out the biologist is hiding a little secret because turns out her husband was on the 11th expedition. This is the 12th. Or so they say. Hint, hint. The 11th expedition, which went in, and then the husband came out, and they're like, what the hell? But then he died of cancer. And, of course, she's kind of baffled by this. And her curiosity, I would suppose, leads her to Area X. And she ends up joining with the not at all shady Southern Reach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where our story really begins. Though she explains that as the story moves on.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't learn that immediately. It takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, you know, if there's one thing I really like about this book, I really like how efficient it is. Like, there's not a lot of like crap or you know exposition-y stuff.
Well, there is. It's funny. So you know how I hate exposition.
There is exposition, but it's not like it's not like characters are just sitting around like, oh, what did you do before all this?
But
wink,
one
wink
thing
to the audience.
Yeah, one thing I would mention to the watch viewers is that, so for me, I'm super sensitive to exposition. I can't stand it in third person. But in first person, it's different because first person is a voice that often has excessive exposition because someone is talking to you directly. You know, it's implied anyway. And so you'll find that it, at least to me, it doesn't feel as obtrusive. Like whereas in Authority, it's in a third person, and there is exposition, and it stands out to me like a sore thumb. Whereas here, it doesn't. And so I think that's worth noting is that sometimes the POV can really change how you frame exposition or how you perceive it anyway.
Let's be fair. Exposition is a tool. It just depends on how you use it.
Of course.
Well, you said it kind of bugged you in Authority. I'm like, well, Control's kind of the new guy, if you remember.
Right. Well, what I mean is specifically about Authority is there's a moment, like an entire scene where he's just basically info dumping his mother, his father's relationship and how it fell apart and how he was involved with it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's like a massive just info dump, basically.
I thought it was fine, but whatever.
No,
We're
it's
talking about
fine.
Yeah. But Annihilation, so she's in there. And a lot of it's kind of weird, because, I mean, there is a story going on, but, like, so much of the book is just the vibe of the place, and it just gets worse, or not worse, but I would say it almost immediately falls apart.
Yeah, it does very quickly. Yeah, there's not much. There's not much.
Cohesion?
Well, yeah, it's not like normally in a book, somebody is kind of the group of characters or characters presented with a
Because like they're
problem.
already suspicious of each other when they get in there.
They're suspicious of each other. Shit just starts falling apart immediately. There's
Yeah,
really,
like
it's
they
pretty
start
much
hearing
like,
weird. They start hearing weird noises in the woods, and
yeah, it's pretty much like, if you
she
start the
gets hit
story
with some
here,
spores, and she's like, "What the fuck?"
yeah,
Okay.
it's constantly just down, 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 down. They're like falling down the slope. There's not any ascent. Usually in a story, sometimes there's like a hiccup, and then there's an ascent to solve the problem, and then you tumble down, 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 down. This is like you start here, down, 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 immediately. So he started, yeah. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
it's structurally it's
we
different.
we kind of skipped the building up part because you can imagine, kind of you can imagine probably the building up part was like briefing and all that, and he's like,
Yeah.
fuck that shit. People want to see what this zone is all about. But yeah, it falls apart either almost immediately or not very long after they get in there. Stuff
I would
just
say it's
starts going
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. Well, first she breathes in the spores,
Uh huh.
and then it immediately falls apart, kind of like right. It's when the anthropologist vanishes.
Oh yeah.
So like right after that, the anthropologist vanished. Everyone's like, "What the hell?" The psychologist is back and saying, "Oh, I don't know what happened," and then she sends the surveyor and the biologist down into the tower while she's guarding out front because she knows what happened because she took
Isn't
the
that before or after she brainwashes? We learn that the hypnosis.
Well, we learn about hypnosis before that,
That's what I thought.
and that's how we. So when the biologist gets infected by the spores, that's when she first realizes that she's immune to the suggestion, the hypnotic suggestion.
Or the spores, if she was hypnotized, broke it somehow.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
But
But yeah, it's pretty immediate. I mean, there are a couple of scenes, maybe one when they're kind of starting to explore it, and then like the next day or whenever it is, it's like anthropologist gone. Holy shit, what's going down? I've breathed in spores. I'm impervious to the suggestion.
we're being hypnotized.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah, and
Are
it's
we
just like
cannon
dude, it's
fodder?
tumbling down, 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 down.
Yeah, and it just goes to hell pretty quickly after that.
But what's cool is even though all of this action is happening, this plot development, things will often remind her of her past. And so her past is interspersed with all of this stuff. So
And she's real blasé to everything, which kind of goes back to her, not like other people. She's to paraphrase something. I remember watching Thomas from SFF 180, who's one of my favorite booktuber people. Who's also kind of been back and forth gone. He's doing a lot of streams more nowadays. But anyway, he said she's more comfortable with the bugs and the critters and the, nature stuff than people. And I'm like, yeah, that's about how I describe the biologist.
what was his critique on it? Do you remember? I don't think I ever watched his review because he didn't give it a 5-star.
He liked it.
Yeah, he gave it like a 4-star or something or a 4.5.
I don't remember. I do remember that. I don't remember quite everything else he said, but I do remember that. Yeah, Annihilation is but yeah, to keep it simple, it goes wrong pretty quickly in comparison to the book, or in comparison to the movie, where they're like together. I'll put it this way: Annihilation, the movie, is more conventional, I guess, in terms of like its structure, because you get the whole build up to the Area X, and then they go inside, and then it kind of they kind of stick together at first, and then it just goes to hell after that.
Mm-hmm.
I bet Jeff VanderMeer was really mad when he saw the. At least I would be jealous when I saw the weird bear thing in the movie. Be like, damn it. Why didn't I think of that?
That was pretty cool. I mean, really though, it was essentially, so in Annihilation there is the moaning creature, which we hear very immediately in the book, and then we
I
find
don't
out
remember
what it
this,
is.
but I was reading about it the other day, and,
Yeah.
and they kind of ridicule it at first.
Well, they're kind of they're like, oh, this is funny or it's comforting or whatever it is, and then it's a character that we do eventually. We never really see it, but she gets up close and personal. Well, close enough later in the book, and that to me is what the bear was. Garland was trying to do, because clearly the bear in the movie has a very human mixed with animal sound, which is exactly what this molting creature thing is, and that she encounters in the book. So, but yeah, it was a cool execution, but also there's something. It's crazy. I love both of them. I love the bear, but I also love the fact that you never see this thing. You see like a human face on the ground where it basically molted off, and you start to see pieces of skin and flesh, like, because it's changing, it's peeling away its old form. That in itself is what's creepy. Not seeing.
You're freaking me out even thinking.
See,
describing.
Yeah, it was such a great. I totally forgot about that scene in the book, and when I read it, I was like, oh, dude, this is so good. So that's and you never see it. You never once actually see what's pursuing her, but you just the fact that you're seeing it shedding and what that molting looks like is horrific enough. And I think that's one thing I have to commend Jeff VanderMeer on as well, is it's like he understands horror, which is crazy because I feel like a lot of horror authors don't understand horror, where it's about like, it's not about how cool your monster is. It's about how do you toe the line and to make that dread and that fear perpetual. And you never give that the final reveal, because we all know that a lot of times when you have the reveal, you're dividing your audience. Some people might love it, some people might hate it, and so if you never do it, then no one can really ever complain, unless they're like, man, I wanted to see it.
Yeah, I remember watching through your thing again, and it kind of like there were parts like that kind of reminded me of The Thing, except it's not really The Thing, because it's not like a creature that assimilates you, but it.
Correct.
Well, okay. Area X kind of assimilates you, but in a different way. It doesn't like turn into a weird eldritch monster when it gets exposed, but it's more like the paranoia and like who the hell is human, who's not. That very much reminded me of The Thing a lot.
Yeah, I mean it kind of is.
My favorite horror movie.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's the alien mimicking humans in The Thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what is in Annihilation too, right? To a degree,
just in a different way.
When it sends its emissaries out into the real world, right? They're copies, they're mimics, they're clones. Yeah. So it's very similar to. That's another film. Like, I mean, come on, man. VanderMeer had to be inspired by The Thing.
I'd be very surprised if he wasn't, or even if it was like subconsciously so.
Yeah,
whatever you were saying, unconsciously so.
Yeah, it's got to be. I can't.
Especially
there's too
when
many...
she's all like, I killed not the archaeologist, the anthropologist later on, and and the biologist is like, okay, but yeah, after the anthropologist disappears and the surveyor gets freaked out, and the psychologist is trying to keep everyone together, kind of. We end up learning she has her own reasons for being there, and the biologist is like, I don't give a shit. I want to go see what's going on here. And like a lot of this book is her by herself, and there's a lot of reflecting on the past and kind of reflecting on what Area X is. And I remember I was kind of joking when I said this, but I'm like, she has a very eloquent way of expressing herself. Despite being a biologist, Not saying that biologists can't be good writers. I'm just saying she's a very good writer for a biologist.
Yeah, I think that's worth pointing out, because it's something that I critique often with books, when with our favorite book, Gabino, which I have right here, The Devil Takes You Home, that you gifted me. So I critique this book because the voice of the character does not match who the person is at all. Mm-hmm. Whereas I could see someone critiquing Annihilation in the same way, but something about the biologist character. She just had this dreamy, introspective quality about her that the writing voice, it felt appropriate to me, so it didn't bother me. And again, I'm a very biased individual when it comes to this book, so take it.
I
With
mean,
a
it
grain of
makes
salt.
sense. It's just kind of something I snicker about from time to time. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's kinda,
it's a
that's
little
kinda
poetic. Yeah, it's a little poetic. Yeah, for sure.
But like she talks about when she was a kid and what drew her to biology, and she talked about her parents. She talked about getting married to the dude, or Oscar Isaac in the movie anyway. Um,
Yeah, we don't know anybody's names
yeah, we don't. Yeah, we never learned
ever,
anyone's names. No.
ever. Well, at least in Annihilation, we don't. We do know in subsequent books, but yeah, we know that's the thing because names are power in this book. They're stripped of their names. They're only known by their function.
Yeah, exactly. Again, kind of reminded me of the Killer, even though the Killer came out like last year.
Yeah.
And this book came out 10 years ago.
But do you remember that scene in the Annihilation though when the surveyor is attacking her
Yeah, yeah,
and she says, "Tell me your name. Tell me your like."
yeah.
She wants that connection. She wants that like humanity to
And
link her back.
biologist
You
is
know?
like, sorry, shoots her. Just like,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah, and part of that's like I think the connection. She wants that, but also maybe it's her trying to prove that she's a real person and not some weird copy, some zombie. Or
Yeah,
something.
no,
I don't know.
that was kind of like the thing, where they're all like, all right. Well, I don't know if it's in that way in the thing. In the thing, they like strip, or they not strip.
Well, they get the petri dish of blood, and then they put the.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though in this book, she starts glowing. Even. Like she starts.
Yeah.
She starts
She
glowing.
starts. She literally starts glowing. Yeah. Which might have been weird in in the film, you know.
Yeah,
that could have been cheesy. I could see how that could potentially.
Which
be
another
cheesy.
kind of interesting contrast. I like that in the movie. It's subtle in the book, but in the movie, I really like how it would go back from her telling the story, and it would cut back, and you could see, like, I remember seeing this when I first saw the movie, that, like, she had the tattoo of one of the other ladies in...
Yeah.
I thought that was
Right.
really neat.
When she
And-
came back, it was like an imperfect copy. Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'll get more to that as we move along, but I thought that was a really interesting. Now, in this book, it's a little different because she starts like glowing. She's like, "What the fuck is this?" And she starts seeing these like weird biblical scrawlings, and I mean, I freaking love biblical language, so I was all over that. So
Yeah. Somebody. Speaking of that, somebody on my Discord server found on Goodreads somebody actually because in the book the scripture is kind of in chunks and pieces everywhere, but somebody placed it all together in order, and it's really awesome. It basically explains the whole story, which is crazy. Like if you really kind of read into the poetic language. But it was cool seeing that in its entirety.
Yeah, no, it's I never thought of it like that, but I may have to read through it again. But I mean, I don't think that's in the Bible. But it
No,
sounds
no.
very biblical. I mean, I looked it up, and it's not in the Bible, though it
Right.
does make sense considering. I don't want to. I don't really.
No
I'm trying,
spoilers for.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not mention the other two books so much with this.
Yeah.
With this discussion. But a lot of it is her by herself, kind of figuring out what all this stuff is. She's like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
what's this?" Oh, yeah. Do you have any insights that you would like to share from your most recent read?
I guess regarding what specifically?
No, just like anyone where like you were reading and you were like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." Like just like a little, maybe not like a little detail, or just something you thought was really interesting. Because I
Man.
can jabber
Oh,
on
God,
for a little bit.
There's so many things. I guess I really enjoyed it when she made it to the lighthouse finally, and was kind of making her way up there, and it was almost like it was a story written in blood, pretty much. There were all these clues as she made her ascent up to the top
Nope.
of what had come before, the previous expedition. So that was kind of a haunting thing, because there's also the parallel between the tower, as she calls it, and the lighthouse. There's this parallel
that's
there.
one thing I always never really quite got, and I don't think it's meant to be like understood or explainable. But like, what is the tower? Because I thought she was just talking about the lighthouse, which I guess is
No,
not really the same thing.
Well, on the map, it is called a topographical anomaly. So I'm not sure if you remember, but she calls it a tower. Everybody else calls it a tunnel, because it's going down. It's not going up. But for whatever reason, she keeps referring it to as a tower. And they actually kind of, I don't want to say argue, but she corrects people, or people correct her in dialogue in the book about, oh, you mean the tunnel, or you mean the tower. And it's described in the book as a kind of a squat building with a single entrance that is made of what looked like to her, while she's hypnotized anyway. What's it called? Coquina. It's basically a mixture of concrete and shells. But we soon realize that that's only what she's been hypnotized to see. So when she sees it, it is definitely a topographical anomaly. And she doesn't really, actually, you know what? I don't even remember if she goes into very much detail about the exterior when she is not hypnotized any longer. But I think it's not made of the stone and the shells anymore. So that was kind of a really cool. Chapter 1 did that very well. Chapter 1's like such a great chapter, because you're seeing this stone-like structure, and she's going down it and trying to, investigate it. And then at the end, she gets like a flash of like fleshy material and stuff. But then after that, she realizes she's hypnotized, and the psychologist says, you will continue to see the tower or the tunnel or the structure, whatever they call it, as made of concrete or coquina, which is like, again, the shell-like material. And then, as a reader, you're like, holy crap. So that's not what it really looks like, what the biologist has seen. And so that was such a great, horrific revelation, because that's when he ends it. And you're like, oh my God, I need to read chapter 2 to see like what this thing really looks like. So that was a great moment too in the book.
So, I have my own kind of thoughts on this, but why do you think they hypnotized them?
Well, it was to do with, I guess, just control, right? They wanted
That's what
to
I thought,
have, yeah, they wanted to be. It's suggestion. It's like hypnotic suggestion. Like, you will not see this. You will do this. Like, I mean, this is a big spoiler, but Annihilation itself was a hypnotic cue to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a self-destruct button.
Yeah, I forget what the word is to put them in the hypnotic state. It's something. It's like control authority or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah,
exactly
there's a little phrase in there for sure. I don't remember it either, but yeah.
Dang.
But yeah, control.
Yeah, I would agree. Either control, or maybe just they thought it would be too incomprehensible, that they were trying to like shield them from it in a weird way. That's kind of a rabbit hole one. I don't know, but that's kind of what I
Well,
think.
one thing you do find out in later books is the psychologist has her own agenda. And so in Annihilation, you don't really know what that agenda is. To your knowledge, she's just the psychologist who's leading the expedition that the biologist is on. And that's really all you know about her in that book. And then, VanderMeer expands upon that character in later novels. But so that's the one thing is, I think if you're reading this book and you want everything explained to you, you're not going to get it, because number one, that's the mystique of it. Part of it anyway is the unknown, but then also there's 2 other books to help kind of fill in some gaps for you.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I won't ask what do you think the psychologist role is, because, well,
Oh, that'd be a spoiler for
I hope you
book
remember
3.
what it is.
Yeah, I do. I
Okay,
do
good.
for sure.
I hope you haven't forgotten that.
No, I remember.
Okay, good. But yeah, so I don't remember how she gets like separated from the other two, but she's basically like, screw this, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go see what's going on over here.
She leaves, so they are going down into the tower, the surveyor and the biologist, and the psychologist just bails.
Yeah.
I think that's when
That's
she
right.
bails.
That's right.
And she just like goes to the lighthouse, and then the biologist kind of tracks her there. I think, or maybe it's funny. I just read the damn book and I can't remember exactly what goes down, but I think it's something like that. Like she takes off.
And the biologist also gets out and it's like, I'm gonna see what's going on over here. And we also learn a bit more about her backstory and how she married her husband, and how that relationship went. And I saw some people comment on this, particularly our friend Thomas from Tactical Hot Dog. She's like,
The contrarian of the Southern Reach trilogy. That's
little bit, yeah. But he was kind of going like, bro, she's so cold. Like, what the hell? Like, what's the matter with her? And like, I don't know really what her feelings are regarding her husband. I think she did care about him, but it's, again, I think.
Well, I will quote, she loved him but did not need him.
Yeah, exactly. And I came up with this is sort of just like a rabbit hole theory, which I remember you were kind of like, what? Well, come on. But like, I really, and I could, now I am biased here because I do have this condition, but like, I am curious if she actually is on the autism spectrum, because she definitely has some of the attributes. Like, has a very narrow focus on like one particular thing. She doesn't relate to people in the same way like she doesn't always read cues from people.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard other people call her a sociopath, which I'm like, that's a bit. I'd say that's a bit too far. But I don't know. But I remember I was kind of teasing you. You were kind of miffed by this theory.
No, I wasn't miffed. I remember I laughed because it was, and I guess talking with you and talking with Thomas about this book has really kind of illuminated to me how different people read books, like how they actually read books and how they consume stories. So for me, when I read a book like this, the last thing on my mind is, how do I explain her behavior, like from a psychological perspective, like from like a clinical perspective. Like, I don't think about that. I think about, okay, this woman's kind of lost. She's uber focused. She's a little, troubled. She's got some past trauma. She's a lone wolf. She's, a loner. That's kind of how I think about it. I don't think about it in clinical terms. The same reason Thomas would complain about, how come there's nobody sneaking in here and taking photos and this and that. I'm like, what? This is what you think about? Well, he very much explains it in the second book.
I'm like, I was about to say, don't they explain that?
Yeah, they do. Not so much in the first book at all, but like in the second book. But I'm like, well,
I kind of took it as something you could just infer, like.
Yeah, I mean,
I put it this way: just think about if this were real. Would the government, in its right mind, let just any random guy go inside of an Area X? Hell no, it wouldn't.
Well, he was mad because they didn't explain exactly like the protocol of the border and stuff.
Okay.
But I'm like, I just, again, I don't read stories for that. I'm more of like, I like to immerse myself in the world and the characters, get in the characters' heads and experience the world that way. So I'm a very visual, immersive reader. It felt like to me, Thomas was viewing the story like from a bird's eye view. Like he was taking in the information and processing it sort of outside of the story, which I thought was interesting. I could be completely wrong. I'm just inferring based on the conversations I had with him. And same thing with what you said about the autism. It's like, sure, I mean, I could see that, but it's just funny that like your mind went there to sort of solve the mystery of why the biologist acts the way she is from a clinical perspective. versus
Well, I
just
mean,
being
I'm
like,
kind of. I just thought it was interesting because it's. Well, I mean, I was just thinking that way because I'm like, she's definitely like this. I'll put it this way: this book could be really boring if it were done wrong. But like you're
yeah, of course.
compelled by the strangeness of the whole thing and the authorial voice and this weird zone area X, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, again, Jeff VanderMeer. To me, this is magnum opus. I know he's written books since then, but like this is peak VanderMeer, and I really hope that Absolution, he kind of he rediscovered the headspace he was in when he wrote this stuff. Because that will be a tragedy
Tragedy.
if it's terrible.
I have faith in VanderMeer. I'm not quite as
Yeah,
fickle
yeah.
as you can be. Because
Well, I've read all of his books up like after post Area X or
I,
post
I
Southern
haven't
Reach.
I haven't I haven't read I've read the 3 Area X books. Born. I
Did you
do
read
own
Dead
Dead
Astronauts?
Astronauts. I
But you haven't
haven't,
read it?
or no, I don't own Dead Astronauts, but I haven't read it. I've heard that one's out there.
It's pretty out there, yeah.
Hummingbird Salamander.
Yep.
I own, haven't read it, and his Perilous Peril. I have that. I would like to read
It's like a
that
young
some
adult
point.
novel, isn't it though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of why I've stayed away from it, but yeah, I mean, I've because this again, favorite trilogy of all time at the time of this recording. I consumed everything after. I've only read a little bit of his stuff before, and it was to me it was kind of like a decline, like a steady decline. Unfortunately, I'll always read his stuff, but it's not even close to what he captured here, in my opinion.
Sure. I mean, one thing we often disagree on is his best book. I personally am quite given to Bourne, and you really love the Southern Reach. And Southern Reach is like close, you know. I love Southern Reach a lot, but I don't know. But back to Annihilation. So they get separated, and she's learning like, oh, what's all this stuff? And oh, I'm glowing now. That's kind of weird. We learn more about her backstory and why she's here and what she's wanting from this experience. Because at first, I really like at first it's like, oh, she's looking for her husband, but like from the dialogue it seems like there's another purpose for why she's here, aside from just oh, my husband's here. I got to figure out what happened. Though I do think that is a motivation for her. I think there's something else going on there.
Well, yeah, I think she likes to convince herself that was her motivation and not her curiosity, because she has a revelation at the very end that like, I'm a little cold and callous and inhuman, and I realize now I see how much my husband loved me. Damn, why wasn't I a better person or better wife? But I think that, I think part of the reason is, and she wrestles with this in her mind later in the book. Like, I like to convince myself that my husband is the reason why I came here.
Mm-hmm.
I think she might even, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm pretty sure she says that at some point. But really it's this draw. She's being drawn to this place to complete her arc, to kind of become
I think
where she...
curiosity. I think like you said, I think she's kind of going like, okay, she's ostensibly here because of her husband, but she's really like, this weird place, I want to see what's going on here.
Yep.
Because if I would say there's one thing that really drives the biologist, and I would say it's a big theme of this book specifically, is curiosity. And human and our desire to know, which is kind of a recurring theme, not just in science fiction, but also in cosmic horror. Though in cosmic horror, it kind of, it's basically like, are you sure you want to know? And Annihilation plays with that a little bit.
Yeah. And there's two moments in her past too that sort of
What do you think?
reinforce.
You think I'm onto something, Jason?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, that's part of it for sure. That's definitely a theme.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Finish
no,
your
no,
thought, and
no.
then I'll ask you.
No, yeah, but I was going to say there's two other instances in the novel of her past that reinforce this idea of her sort of her final form, quote unquote, is to be an Area X, because when she's a child, she lives in a house that has a pool, and it's like it's overgrown with moss, and there's frogs and fish living in it, and she just spends most of her time out there observing constantly. And then later in life, she moves to the city with her husband temporarily, and she wanders to this vacant lot that is kind of overgrown with, foliage, and basically like nature is trying to reclaim it. There's animals there and stuff, and so she'll just go there. So she's constantly being drawn to nature, to these things, to be lost in this biological mass. And Area X really is the ultimate of that thing. It's just like that's
her wet dream, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so it's really her. It's her coming to terms with that. Sort of understanding that she's, not fighting who she is anymore, but looking back on the sort of missed opportunities that, with her husband and her relationships from other people, and how like her parents, and how, man, it could have been different. It could have been different, but I'm me and I can't change who I am. So it's such a great character arc in the story, in that, it's not just about a woman venturing into this alien-like landscape and getting breathing spores, and her party being decimated. It's about her personal journey as a human being, having a revelation of who she really is, the stuff she's really made of, and the pain that she's caused along that path. So that's,
albeit
again,
unintentionally so.
Unintentionally, exactly. But she realizes at the end, because I think it's such a great commentary on relationships too, because in the beginning of the book, she fully admits that her and her husband are very different. Her husband's very much extroverted guy. She's very introverted. And she says, and this often is how people sort of celebrate their relationship, is that we're so different, opposites attract, right? That's what brings us together. But then she admits that was also our downfall. She's like, we basically lied to ourselves, saying that this is what's going to bring us together, the fact that we are different. And then over the course of time, you find out that that's actually the weak spot. That's what like drove them apart. And she's grappling with that. She's grappling with the fact that I think I loved this man, but also I didn't need him. Like I don't need to be with him, but maybe, again, she's trying to justify her actions in a way, but then also admit to herself that I'm not the kind of woman that he should have been with, even though I kind of tried. There was a moment when she would go out with him and his friends and just kind of sip at a beer or have some alcohol and just kind of be alone with her thoughts. So that was kind of her trying to meet him a little bit, but it wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, and then later on in the book, when she finds his journal, she sees kind of a similar thing where he was like, I wanted to see what she sees with all this, nature stuff.
Yeah. So his love, when he's in this place, all he could think about was her. And so you find out, and that's what makes the ending so painful, is that, she realizes how much he actually loved her and would do anything for her. And she was the one not putting the effort in. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, often we find that in a protagonist that we read in a novel or watch in a film, it's the inverse of that. Mm-hmm. We're the victim. Like the protagonist is the victim, and they rise up to overcome these transgressions, right? Mm-hmm. But in this, it's inverse, which is, again, makes it a fucking great story, is that we're the bastard. We're the one who like fucked this relationship up. And I think that, again, it's subverting the tropes that we're so used to, which is great.
So are you saying So are you
Yes.
saying like this is like a metaphorical because he loves his environmental stuff? So are you saying he's using this relationship as a metaphor for how we like fuck the earth?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh. I mean,
Well,
I just
so
hadn't thought of it like that.
well, yeah. So VanderMeer is incredibly active in environmentalism. He's very passionate about what we're doing to the earth
I
or what
mean,
we're
God,
not
check out
doing.
his Twitter feed. Dude
Right,
has
and
friggin' animals all over the place.
his fiction gets so to me again, Annihilate or the Southern Reach trilogy is a perfect commentary on our relationship with the earth in a destructive but in us also a symbiotic fashion, and how we're part of it, we're not separate from it, without being on the nose. Now you get all the way to Hummingbird Salamander and it's damn on the nose, and so that's why I feel like this is peak VanderMeer right here.
Well, on the nose, I don't want to. I don't wish to quibble, but I mean, I haven't read Hummingbird Salamander, but like on the nose isn't always a bad thing. It's just doing it artfully, as you like to say. Now,
Yeah.
I haven't read Hummingbird Salamander, so I won't comment on that. But
I like the book. I like the book, but it's to me it's more of a like, oh man, I wish he would have been a little bit more metaphorical with it versus literal with it. There's just something cool about reading a story that feels like it's about one thing, and then you realize, oh shit, this is really what it's about. It's not about the literal events on the page. It's about something bigger and different. Whereas with Hummingbird Salamander, it's about poachers, and it's very environmental focused. So
yeah, also kind of him returning to espionage, apparently,
yeah,
from what I've heard.
exactly.
So.
Yep. Yeah, she's a detective, I think, if I remember correctly, or a police officer or something.
Going back to Annihilation, I would say there's a couple of themes that arrive here, aside from what you were talking about. One is curiosity, as I mentioned before. Another one is alienation. Not just with this weird landscape where you're like, what the fuck is this? But also with the biologist herself, because the biologist is, well, again, yeah, I would not be shocked again if she had autism in some sort or another, because that's kind of. I didn't actually come up with this until later, because I remember when I was reading the book, I was kind of like, okay, she's kind of an oddball, but whatever. And I'm like, and then like a few years later, I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that could like that could explain it, maybe. And Jeff VanderMeer might come on this channel, as unlikely as that might be, and go, you're wrong, shut up,
Which is okay, because I think I'm of the opinion that your interpretation can be very valid. Like
possibly, I don't know, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And again, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying this could be. And
That's what's great about fiction, though, especially
and
books.
some people might
that
go, "Oh, dude, I didn't even think of it like that." So
I didn't either. Yeah, and I was like, okay. To me, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see it, but to me, it just more illustrated how people read books differently.
No, it was just kind of funny how I thought it was kind of funny how you reacted. You were kind of like, "What?"
Yeah, I mean, it was a curveball for sure. I didn't expect it, but I mean,
yeah,
you're known for your curveballs.
And Thomas, poor guy, is just like, what? And he was just it was almost like he was in Area X. He was just incomprehensible the whole time. And I'm like, it was one of those moments I was trying to tell him, like, bro, just go with the experience and then think about all that later. I think that's kind of how I was.
Yeah, exactly. Like just let the book wash over you. Don't
exactly
fixate on the details. Like, get lost in Area X, man. That's what this is about.
We do learn that there's this like weird mythology of the place that isn't not just where lies the strangling fruit, but there's also like weird creatures in here. The crawler particularly, which is another difference from the movie, because in the movie there's like a couple of things, like that bear thing. And there's also the copy person thing, mannequin, whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
In this, it's more like the crawler, which is like this weird Lovecraftian incomprehensibility type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but there's parallels to the film and the book. So the crocodile is basically kind of like the wild boar in a way.
Mm.
The bear is the moaning creature in the book the molting moaning creature. There's twin dolphins we see in the book, and there's also these twin antelope kind of things
Oh yeah,
that are like
yeah.
mirroring each other. So there's a lot of not exact, one for ones, but you can tell that Garland was trying to pay homage to the book. But yeah, there's creatures. There's the idea of transformation. That I think what I found that was fascinating that the book did differently, or the movie did differently, is that when the biologist takes the samples of like things, like I think she finds like a fox cells and wood and this and that and herself, things that have changed basically. She finds human cells. So whereas
Another reminded me of the Thing when she finds the human cells, because
yeah.
in the Thing there's that scene where they're doing the autopsy on the dog thing, and it's like these are normal organs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not making them into aliens. It's making other things from humans. So it begs the question, everything changes. You're like, holy shit, all these animals are actually humans. Kind of like when she sees the dolphins early on and she
Yeah.
notices it has a very human eyeball.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, whoa. And it's familiar. Is it her husband? We don't know. So it's to me, there's commentary on relationships and understanding who you are and your place in the world, but also a deep reminder that we are part of this earth. I know humans, we often try to separate ourselves from the earth, but we're we're symbiotic with it. We are part of it.
We need it.
And we need it. The further away we get from it, the worse
Now,
off we're going to be, because
if you're like an edgelord environmentalist, like anarcho green person, then you might be like, oh well, maybe the Earth doesn't need us. Go full 12 monkeys on.
No, we're part of it. Like
No,
we're
I
all,
know it's
yeah,
just,
we're all
I'm
the
joking
same
when I say that, but
yeah.
well,
To this hypothetical edgelord guy, yeah, I'm saying like, no, don't be an idiot. Like we're part of this earth. Like,
yeah, I thought what was interesting about this book, another thing is because like there's a lot of, I've noticed in some science fiction that kind of is like this, that deals with mostly post-apocalyptic fiction, which I wouldn't call this post-apocalyptic. It's not really. It starts edging towards there by the end, but
it's like pre-apocalypse, right?
Yeah,
like the
it's weird.
Yeah. Could be the pre-apocalypse.
But there's a lot of questioning I've seen in science fiction about, like, okay, we need nature, but does nature need us? And I guess this isn't a new thing in science fiction. It's in, I hate to say regular old fiction, but just, in literary fiction, I've seen this as well. While in this book, you see how, like, we connect with nature as much as we don't always treat it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's he briefly mentions it in Annihilation as well, as sort of a when she's sort of visualizing what Area X is, and she envisions it as a thorn, like stuck in the earth, and how it's reclaiming or transforming. And she even says, like, not that that's a bad thing. So
yeah.
she herself even comes to that realization.
She is the edgelord.
She is the edgelord. You're right.
No, I'm kidding. But I should I save this for acceptance?
I wouldn't spoil. I wouldn't spoil acceptance.
I'll try and dance around acceptance. I don't know if this question is more appropriate. You can let me know if you think it's more appropriate for acceptance. But, like, what do you think Area X is?
I mean, it's kind of spoilery. I would say it's an alien force. That's what I think it is.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like in the film when the meteor
yeah,
hits,
and it,
it flies in through space and it hits the lighthouse, and like that's kind of where
yeah.
everything happens. And I
That is
remember in the third book, I don't want to spoil it, but
that is one gripe I have with the movie. I don't like that it just kind of evaporates or whatever the hell happens to
what do you
Ariel.
mean? Oh, how the shimmer kind of
She like
dissolves?
she fights the mannequin thing,
Yeah.
and then she destroys the mannequin thing. Maybe we don't know.
Well, I think we know.
That's why I
I
said
think
maybe.
we know.
That's why I said maybe.
Yeah.
And it just kind of evaporates. Which what I really like about the book is that there's the sense that you can't stop it.
Yep.
Which, I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I know
even when you get
you're
through
quite fond of bleak outcomes.
yeah, I mean, when you get through the end of the book or the trilogy, like, yeah, it's you realize it's not I mean, not to spoil anything, but the book's very open-ended, and you learn very quickly that the story VanderMeer is telling is not one of plot. It's of character. I mean, character is
and
at
the
the heart.
vibe. Don't forget the vibe.
Well, the vibe, but I mean, the once you get to the end, and if you look at this trilogy as a very plot-driven story, then you're probably going to be disappointed at the end.
I'd
but
say Authority has more plot than like Annihilation or even Acceptance has a plot, I guess. There's like
but what I mean is, it's not about the plot. There is a plot, but it's not about the plot. Like a lot of times when people read a book like this or a trilogy like this, they assume the heroes are going to come out on top and the mystery will be solved and this and that. Like that's not what this is. And that's what I love about it.
And
I love that it's
like that
open-ended.
the mystery isn't solved. I'm just
Right.
I'm one of those guys. I like to theorize about things. I know you're kind of like you don't really care about that, or maybe you do. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I like it to where it's no, I do. I mean, a good book that
you don't
has
ever,
an
you don't
open
ever
end.
theorize about what Area X is.
I mean, not any more than what VanderMeer gives me.
Fair enough.
In that, oh yeah, it's probably an alien life form that came here and is starting to transform. As far as beyond that, like I don't think about that. Like, ooh, well, is it an eldritch being from a different dimension, or like what's its origin?
I don't
Is
know
it
if
one
I go,
of many?
I don't know if I go that far. I'm more just like, I guess I wonder if it's like an alien, which okay, it's probably is, which may be an explanation, but or is it like some weird part of Earth that's like, oh, you're fucking me, well, I'm gonna fuck you back, humanity. Or something.
No, it
weird
could
like
be,
that.
and that's what's great about it is that it could be either. Like we don't know, we just know sort of the catalyst for everything, but that's it.
Yeah,
we don't know. Is it coming from the Earth or is it coming from external? Like I have no idea.
Yeah, like the movie, it's clear it's an alien, like some.
Yeah,
alien
it's a meteor coming from
weirdness.
space, and
in the
yeah,
book,
exactly.
it's way more in the trilogy. Which again, I'm really trying not to go into Authority and Acceptance too much, but
Right.
It's more vague, we'll say.
Very,
like where this
very
comes
much
so. But yeah. Favorite moments from Jason.
Favorite moments. Oh man. Well,
Also,
I think one of my
it doesn't count if you say all of it.
all of it. Yeah, I know. No, I'd say the first favorite moment I had was the moment when we learned that the biologist is no longer able to be hypnotized.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty
and
cool.
the psychologist says, but it's really what the psychologist said. You will continue to see the structure as made of stone. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
what does this thing really look like? Like, that was a cool moment right there.
One of my favorite bits is when she actually goes into the tunnel and sees the crawler, and they have like that little weird like, what is it, stare down?
Like a little dance where
Yeah.
it rejects her, basically.
Where she's
you
all
know?
like, ooh, and he's all like, and it's like, and
Yeah.
you almost feel sorry. I feel kind of sorry for it. Well, this might be hindsight Britain, having read the whole trilogy, talking about it. But, like, you kind of feel bad for it, because it doesn't seem to want to, like, harm anybody. It's just kind of, like, flopping around.
It's doing its thing, and it's on some kind of cycle, apparently, that she determines. That she determines that, like, stuff's going down in Area X. Like, there's a war brewing, which she says in Annihilation. And not that few words, or not those words exactly, but she's alluding to it.
Another thing I really like, and I mean, I'm not a big science nut, but I like in this book, and I wish more science fiction books would do this, is how the science in the story kind of come together quite nicely, I think.
Really? What do you mean by the science?
Well, I mean, not necessarily this is not a hard science fiction book by any means. It's this is what the thing is. But you definitely, like, you see her using the scientific method to hypothesize what this thing could be and what the hell is even going on. Which is not, it's not like how does this spaceship work type of science fiction. But it definitely, it feels authentic without, sacrificing the weirdness of the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we had this argument as well on the Discord server, and it is divulged as well in the book that she doesn't really follow protocol, like scientific protocol. She's like, I'm not doing all this stuff. I'm just going to take notes of things that I think are cool, that interest me.
She just wants to. She's like I'm thinking of it kind of like she's a pig. She's just like rolling around in the water or something.
Yeah, she's not really approaching it, I guess, as traditional in the scientific method. She's sort of just experiencing it and trying to learn from it the way she wants to. That's why she kind of didn't get. She talks about her past later in the book, where she was on a grant, right, where she was exploring these tide pools, and there's some weird mollusk or something that she's studying, and she admits, like, I know why my grant wasn't renewed, because I basically fucked off the whole time. Like, I wasn't being a scientist. I was just like hanging out in the tide pools and being
which kind of goes back to that theme of curiosity, and it is explored more as the series moves along. But I mean, I would say it's different because Authority is more about, like, control and the government's hapless attempts to try and control what Area X is, and as it goes along, you realize you can't. But
right.
Which is a nice little piece of dramatic irony, because we already know that, but these hapless people in the building don't know that. Can you tell I can't wait to get to Authority?
Oh yeah, well, I know. I actually, after this video, I think I might be reading Authority again, getting ready for the next video for the read along.
No, I think it. This is another thing that kind of interests me, because I've met some people like my friend Jimmy Nuts, who have read the first book of Annihilation, and then you're like, you know what, I'm good. I can chill with this.
Wow.
And I can, and the weird thing,
he likes Malazan though, doesn't he?
It might bamboozle you, Jason, but I can definitely see how people could read the first Annihilation book and be like, okay, yeah, this is cool.
I mean, I could see that for any book, because not every book is for everybody. So
sure, yeah. Now, I do recommend reading Authority and Acceptance. I think both of them are excellent. But, well, Acceptance, when we get to Acceptance, I have some thoughts on it. But,
okay.
Because, like, the style of Acceptance is kind of weird.
Because it's like three POVs?
It's a little too weird. Second person throws me off, I'll put it that way.
Gotcha.
But that's for Acceptance.
One thing I will note, though, another thing about this trilogy that makes it unique, and I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Nuts didn't read on, is that...
I'm not saying he won't. It's just he hasn't so far.
He probably won't. But anyway, let's just say he does, or he doesn't. So most trilogies, they're kind of a progression with the main cast. Mm-hmm. Whereas Annihilation is all about the biologist, her experience in the field, quote unquote, and then authority is about a newcomer, so still a newcomer, just like the biologist was,
Just in a
to
different
Southern
way.
Reach, but in a different way. So he's in the Southern Reach. So you get a glimpse at the government organization that is outside the border. And so to me, that's so great because, again, more parallels. You can see that Control and the biologist are similar in a lot of ways in how they're brought into the plot.
You know, that's probably why he grows so attached to Ghostbird in Authority.
Well, don't spoil,
Oh,
man.
sorry.
Spoilers. Bleep it out. Yeah, so it's cool. And then the third book, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but again, very different. So the first book is in first
Acceptance,
person.
he's just like, here you go. Fucking take
Yeah.
it and go away.
Yeah, first book is first person journal. Like, I shouldn't say journal style, but she is dictating this to us. She does address us as the reader, which is great. Those are my favorite parts
One thing I
too.
like that I kind of forgot about is at the end, she's like, you know, I worked on this for 4 days, and I am the last casualty of Expedition 11 and 12. I am not going home. Or I am not coming home. Right.
Yep.
Is it the first one or second one? Let me look.
I am not going home, I think. I can't remember.
Cat, you're going to have to move off the book. She has to sit on it, of course. Here. I am not returning home. Okay.
I'm not returning home. Yeah. So, yeah, good stuff. I mean, that's a favorite part of mine. Beautiful ending. I love the creature, the moaning creature encounter was
Wait, I thought that
freaking
was the crawler.
creepy. No. The molting thing, the moaning thing.
Yeah.
Where she finds the human face. That was a awesome moment. I really enjoyed the moment when she's having the conversation with the psychologist on the beach. That was a great. There's so many great moments in this book.
Again, it becomes more tragic as you realize in hindsight, but, you know, trying to keeping it vague.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping it vague.
Yeah, no spoilers. But yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah, so many great moments. Beautifully paced, in my opinion. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's just the length it needs to be. It begs you to keep on with the series. I don't know, man.
Also, what does Jimmy liking Malazan have to do with things?
It was a joke. It was just like a little pot shot at him because I think Malazan is pretty trash. At least the first book.
Annihilation was some of my favorite parts. Well, I like when she goes with the crawler and they do their whole little song, whatever they're doing. It's kind of. I remember when I first read it, I was like, "This is the climactic moment," and I was like, "Okay," because I was a dumb kid back then. I didn't really quite grasp that. Oh, the real climax is when she finds the journal. Oh, yeah, that makes more sense now. But I do like that part though. I do like when they're kind of having their little weird meltdown. I just love her finding the weird biblical scrawlings on the wall and just adding to the mystique of this place. You see where lies the strangling fruit. You're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yep. What does it mean? What does it mean?
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, that's rhetorical, but I'm just,
No, I know.
It's like, and I also like the hypnosis part because you're like, what the hell? Southern Reach is really sus, as the kids like to
Thomas did not like the hypnosis part, as we know.
say. Yeah, he did.
He's like, that is
I
not how
read
hypnosis works.
Comments upon comments of him railing about the hypnosis. I'm like, dude, look, I get it. And to be honest, I generally would probably be more critical of it, but that's kind of how hypnosis works. He can prattle on about how bad it is all he wants. That's how I've seen it happen. I've seen hypnosis work. That is how it happens. Like, it's. I guess this is how you feel when I read one of the books you recommend me, and I'm reading it. I'm like, what is this, Jason? You're like, just keep reading it.
Just read it, dude. Yeah. It's like, you want me to give you a play-by-play explanation? You did that when you read my book. You're like, what does this mean? I was like, just read the book.
Yeah, no, I mean, in Annihilation, I had more of an idea what was going on, because like, in your book, sometimes I was like, what is going on?
It was opaque, I know.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I might redo a conversation. I might read that again and do another conversation, see if anything changes. But, Annihilation, I also really like the ending line, because it's like, it's not really because one thing, we're always kind of playfully bickering about this, but in Lovecraft, I always hate how the protagonists go like, oh, here's this weird, incomprehensible thing, and then they just accept it, and you're like, okay. In this, it makes more sense that she accepts it, because like, what else does she have to lose? Her husband's gone.
Yeah.
She kind of realizes that, like, oh shit, I kind of did this to him. Boo.
Well, I love this line in the book where it was.
And then she accepts her fate. I'm like, that makes a lot more sense than Lovecraft's guy going, oh, I'm a fish person that were meant to take over the world by Cthulhu. Oh, I'm okay with that,
Well, because Lovecraft, yeah, he's not about character at all.
I'm not freaked out at all. It's not creepy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break out my cousin. We're gonna be fish people. Anyway, what were you saying? Line from the book?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of when she encounters the creature, she says, my eyes kept glancing off of it as if an optic nerve was not enough. I loved it. And here's the description. I know we were talking about this earlier. It was a figure within a series of refracted panes of glass, period. It was a series of layers in the shape of an archway, period. It was a great slug-like monster ringed by satellites of even odder creatures. It was a glistening star. My eyes kept, etc., etc. So you can see here that it's this. Again. Yeah, it's like this. It's a changing thing. It's not like just, oh, it's a big, creepy Lovecraftian monster. It's like, holy crap, it's like refracted glass. It's like a crazy archway. Okay, it's a weird alien slug. Oh man, it's a glistening star. Like what? It's just it's hard to describe, or it's ever changing. And the very last line, which to me is the best way you can that I've ever seen it described, is my eyes kept glancing off of it as if an optic nerve was not enough. To me, that's the best way you can say indescribable, or no words could describe it.
Yeah,
it's like I literally can't perceive it.
I'll put it this way: it's basically the Lovecraftian kind of cosmic horror, except like it feels better. It's not as awkward as some of Lovecraft's stories can be.
Yeah, no. It's.
Though
to me, it's.
She might get angry at us if I.
He would, and I have on a tab the article. I'm going to read it after we get off here, but like it to me is where cosmic horror should have gone. Like I love Lovecraft. Clearly, he's my favorite, but this to me is an evolution in the right direction of what cosmic horror should be.
Science fiction, which is what blew me away.
Well, Lovecraft is science fiction.
He is. I'll
if you really want to get into it,
he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is about other dimensional beings, right? It's not like about just creepy crawlies that live in the middle of the earth, It's things from
stories as well.
Yeah, there's things from other dimensions. So I would say that's science fiction horror, which I would classify Annihilation as. I would say it's horror sci-fi or sci-fi horror. So, but yeah, I guess that's my thing. Is like
ring to it.
Yeah, this was sort of cosmic horror that I was hoping to see. Like, because again, Lovecraft stories will always be with me, but I like to see genre evolve over time, and to me, that's what this was.
I'm the same way. I'm like, man, I wish more cosmic horror is like this, because like I'll admit, there's a lot of cosmic horror stuff I've read, and it's just like bad Lovecraft ripoffs where
exactly
a bunch of tentacles and like
right.
Weird...
They don't get what cosmic horror is.
Now,
I find that often.
Say, like
Langan does
very well. Mieville
John
does
Langan.
Well too.
John Langan gets it.
John Langan apparently really gets it. That's what Jason says. I've heard a lot of very mixed.
Well, that's what I just said.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
I was like, "Am I here? Can you hear me?"
Langan apparently is really good at it. The
Yeah,
Fisherman
Langan's
I
great.
saw has like very polarized reaction. I would like to get to that book at some point, but
Yeah, it's I'd say it's worth reading, but it's a flawed book in my opinion for sure. But it's got
you read
got
some of his
great
short
qualities.
stories a while ago. Were they good?
Yeah, I did a read along of what was it, the and other monstrous geographies. The Wide Carnivorous Sky and Other Monstrous Geographies.
Like, also, I'd say Mieville does it very well in Baez Leg. I really love, but he does. It's not horror though. It's more just the incomprehensibility. He gets that very well. But going back
I haven't read him yet.
going back to Annihilation. Best cosmic horror I've read in a while. I'll admit I've been really bad at keeping up with cosmic horror.
If anybody
It's a
who's
very
watching,
niche
if
genre.
anyone has made it nearly 2 hours into this talk, and you have a great cosmic horror recommendation, please let me know, because outside of VanderMeer and outside of Langan, I have not found anybody who like gets what cosmic horror is at all.
Caitlin Kiernan's
Like,
pretty good.
who?
I haven't read her. Caitlin Kiernan.
Okay, never heard of her, but I'll have to
I don't know
look
if she
at
does
it.
cosmic horror, but I know she's like known as or well, hold on.
That's what
Hold on.
That's what I was
She
just
does-
asking
she
about.
She does do cosmic horror. She does other things too, like dark fantasy. It's one book
Okay.
she did. A friend of mine really liked it. But hey, if anyone has made it this far, if you have any cosmic horror, tell me and Jason. Jason will eat that up.
I will.
Well, I've heard Thomas Ligotti's pretty good. So.
Oh yeah. That good point. I need to read. I've read one of his stories only, just like you, but I need to really dive
It's funny.
into
I had
his.
the Penguin edition that they put where they combined Grimscribe and I think it's
That's
Songs
what I
of
have.
the Dead Dreamer. I read the
That's
first
what I
story
got, yeah.
in that. And I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
Okay.
But I haven't
Yeah.
read any of his other ones. But I've heard
Actually,
it,
go ahead.
well, if you're familiar with True Detective, a lot of where Rust got his time is a flat circle, life is meaningless, life is malignantly useless, as Thomas Ligotti would say. That's where he got it from. Annihilation. Great cosmic horror. If you're a fan of The Color Out of Space or Roadside Picnic, give Annihilation a shot. I might cut out the fuck Mike Davis bit, but you know. Anyway,
Yeah, because I don't know that he's gonna watch this,
I don't think
considering
he's
he
going
blocked you
to,
on
but
Facebook.
because like I'm
Yeah.
very small, but yeah, I don't want to cause drama in the future. Yeah, I might cut that out. But anyway, that's a kind of sucky thing about Annihilation. It's so short. It's like, dang it.
But it's the great though. It's
Want
like
more.
it's the perfect it's the perfect book though, because you want more, but he doesn't give you more. You never feel like this could have been like 50
like-
pages shorter.
It's
You know.
like you eat a great meal, and you want more, but you're stuffed.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good way of putting it. I'll agree with
anyway.
that. I'll agree with that.
But anyway, yeah, we're I think that's all I gotta say about Annihilation.
That's all we gotta say.
I mean, I could compare contrast the movie, but we've already kind of done that. Does the psychologist say she has cancer in the book, or is that just the movie?
She does not in the book.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
She does not talk about that at all in the book, that she has any kind of affliction.
Well, until Authority.
Till Authority?
I do look forward to Authority because this might shock you, Jason, but this is kind of a debate I've been having in my mind since I read it in 2021.
Mhm.
I don't know if I actually like Authority or Annihilation better.
I know Mr. Carol Wainwright prefers Authority, and then some other one of my subscribers commented that he likes Authority the best too. But
I really
Right
like
now-
Authority. I really like Authority.
we'll see how I feel. I'm only about 50 or so pages into it, but right now I'd say still Annihilation is a better book in my opinion so far. But it's very young. It's very early.
Oh, but the mystery and the espionage and the weird.
Yeah, like I said, I'll see.
And it's
I'll see.
creeping up on you. You know,
It's creeping up.
But I'll wait till authority and we can talk about that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So Jason, thank you
Yes.
for joining.
Thank you. Hey man, it's been a long time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I haven't. Well, I thought about doing True Detective since that also turned 10 years old this year, but I wanted.
Wow.
I was thinking about waiting till October to do that. So. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, Jason, if you have any social media, feel free to share.
Oh yeah. So you guys can find me at Jason Fuhrman here on YouTube, and if you would like a buddy to read Annihilation along with, I have a 5-part video series that goes very in depth on it, and I've just kicked off.
Good. It was really tempting me to reread it again.
Oh, thanks, man. And also, I just kicked off Authority, so we're doing the whole thing. We're doing the whole trilogy plus Absolution when it comes out in October. So it's going to be an epic Southern Reach quadrology. Is that what they're called?
Maybe we can get back together again and talk about Absolution. Though I am also.
Let's do it.
I'm in your kind of boat at the moment. I'm kind of sweating and nerves. But
Yeah.
hey, it is a prequel, so if it is
The
bad,
prequel.
we can ignore it.
Right. Yeah. You can just say, "Oh, that's not canon. This is canon right here."
Though I trust VanderMeer for the most part, so
I do too.
He'll see us through. But yeah, this has been Annihilation. Can't wait for Authority. I'm looking forward to Authority.
Me too.
Until next time.